finish off with some recommendations from all that analysis. So a few takeaways from 2021. Training. We've got an interesting dichotomy. People don't expect for training when they're investigating a project, but they are prepared to pay when it's part of their business. So MOOC.org is interesting pricing. It's free if you just want to learn. If you want that training recognized, then you have to pay a fee. So this enables people to investigate for free. And then if they require support, the training needs to be verified. So this avoids the hassle of training through support, which can be a massive time sink when bringing in new community members. Feedback on this point about using MOOC has been mute. However, I do consider this to be a firm recommendation from the study. It seems to be working. It seems to meet both the needs of people wanting to use the projects and some of the challenges people that are running the projects are stating. Now, while the mature projects didn't change much, we did see projects like Wazo change a little, though, as I mentioned, the sample size is small. So I warn against inferring too much. Simply, it's a community that's maturing over the years. So given generally how small the changes were over 1 year, we do the project surveys every 2 rather than every year. Now, one of the things open source telecom software is part of a suite of open source projects. So perhaps we should be investigating dominant architectures. Now, this one's quite complex. I've discussed with several people, that there are popular projects, such as Ansible, Confluent, Grafana, but once you get into the details, it's sort of, it gets quite complex to try and identify particular common architectures because of the multitude of, application situations. But also some, so implementations, people want to keep secrets in terms of their architecture. So I'm not sure it makes sense to go much further than just showing the popular projects used by the survey respondents. This one, I think, really drove home when we asked about the barriers and how to overcome them for open source projects. In that, companies that use open source are making a long-term commitment and building an organization that understands open source and is committed to owning its product, its roadmap, and its customer experience. So, companies successful with open source don't happen overnight. This takes years to develop. And I think this is part of the reasoning behind why Gamma bought Mission Labs. It's an example of a large company buying the necessary expertise to build a product team around that core, because Gamma can't continue to resell, say, BroadSoft from Cisco and still make money given where the price points are in the market, while having a product that it owns, manages, maintains, controls, and can turn on a dime, at a fraction of the cost of reselling BroadSoft, enables it to fulfill its customer needs, have a far stronger customer relationship, and still make money. And of course, and I apologize that I keep saying this word throughout the survey, but that's what the survey results say: documentation, documentation, documentation. I check out Twilio. They've got it right, but we need to find a way to help solve this industry-wide issue. There's general agreement on it being an issue, but motivation to solve it does appear low. Some have argued that the documentation is fine with their existing consultants, and that's good. I'm not arguing that generally, existing, community members will find the documentation, good. But what about new channels? We saw with IoT just how many applications of asterisks, etc., are being used around IoT devices. So you've got new people that are coming into these projects. From the Open SIP Summit, we did discuss the importance of recognizing community members' documentation contributions as much as code contributions. Because I mentioned, many community members are intimidated, because the core team are just so good at programming. But, so they don't contribute code, but they could contribute a lot more around documentation. We need to find a way of recognizing and rewarding those contributions that help address this gap we see in documentation, which is only going to grow as we bring in more people around the world using these projects and more people that are more web-centric than telco-centric. And I would just like to highlight Jambons was a sponsor of TADAC Global in September this year. Check out these two YouTube videos, the pictures from Dan Jenkins and also from Sam Machin. And during the events over one weekend, they both made significant contributions to Jambons. So I think this is showing how you can use a hackathon to get new contributions in that can significantly impact your project. It also shows people how open source works very viscerally. I've been mentioning this many times now, both at Enterprise Connect, at several presentations where I summarize the results of TADAC, but definitely have a look at what Dan and Sam did. They have significantly enhanced Jambons, and more importantly, made thousands of people around the world aware of Jambons and looking at what it can do for them. So that's it. Thank you so much for staying with my presentation. It was extremely long, but I have chopped it up into a number of pieces. And just again, a thank you to Automart, Arva Networks, Go Contact and Broadvoice, Strolid, Radisys and Telnix for sponsoring TAD Summit EMEA Americas 2021. Thanks for making this possible.